Hi, Nigel here with the Drive Wire, and this is the all new 2021 Chevy Tahoe. And they've changed quite a lot. It is 7 inches longer than the outgoing model, and best of all, it has a new independent multi-link suspension which helps with, well, cargo space, ride, handling, pretty much everything. This one comes with the standard 20-inch wheels, but you can get 22s. This one is one step down from the High Country, and it's a Premier edition. You can get an LT, which is the base edition. Those come with the base engine, which I'm going to talk about in a second. There's 3 different engine options depending on the trim that you decide to use. So let's go over there and see what powers this thing. Okay, so this one has the base engine. It's the 5.3 liter V8 used across the range, 355 horsepower, 383 foot-pounds of torque. It is not the engine that I would choose. About a month ago, I drove a 21 Suburban with the new 3.0 turbo diesel engine, which is the one to have because it has 260 horsepower but 442 foot-pounds of torque. And then if you spec the High Country or some of the other higher specs, including this one, you can get the 6.2 liter V8, and that puts out 420 horsepower. But is not exactly economical. This base engine has a 19 miles to the gallon highway, but the turbo diesel, which is the one that I would have, does 27, and it only costs an additional $950. All examples have a 10-speed automatic transmission, probably one of the best transmissions in any car that I've driven. All right, so the design, it has been changed. Every new panel is new. The grille is very, very typical Chevy with the bow tie in the middle. What I do like, because one pet peeve of mine is when these vents are not real, but these are actually real. So I really like the look of it. Yeah, everything they've done with it, it makes it look pretty good. It is shaped like a brick though, but they've made a good job with making it look much better than the outgoing model. Speaking of design, the best view for me is from the back. I really like what they've done, especially with these new light clusters, and then these new exhaust tips look actually pretty cool for an SUV. Let's take a look in the back here. With 7 inches additional length, the car has increased its cargo capacity. So just with the 3rd row up here, 25 cubic feet of space. This model has powered seats, so you can put them up and down with power. So simply knocking down these 2 seats, we can just hit this button right here and it tucks itself away. Now that now is 75 cubic feet of space, again helped by the fact that it now has a independent suspension which takes up less space than before. It's pretty flat. This is just the middle seat belt for the person that sits in the middle, the unlucky one. And then the forward seats, this particular car is spec'd for 7 seats. You can get a bench at the back. This one has the 2 captains. Hit this button right here and it folds up. Other one there. With all rows flat, you get 125 cubic feet of space, which is surprisingly the same as you got with the old Suburban. So you can imagine how much room the longer Suburban version of this car gets now. If you want even more room and you want to tuck those seats into the very back, simply do that. So this gives you a considerable amount of additional space that you can put stuff on the floor if you've only got 2 passengers in the car. These are manual to put back to where they were before, but they're pretty simple, well weighted, and then simply pop that like that. And then once you get a passenger in, they have controls to be able to just push these back. And as you can see, a ton of rear leg room in the back for all passengers. And then this one's exactly the same. You can even do it from here. And then it just rolls forward, armrest down. Pretty easy. And I like it in the back. It's got controls for temperature, HVAC, vents here, and this particular one is the leather option. All right, so what is completely new is you no longer get the screen that with a push of a button raises up, and that's where you hide your wealth of PPK or whatever. That is gone. Chevy's replaced it with this fixed screen. It's a touchscreen system as the one before, but it's a lot faster. This one's got nav on it. It doesn't take too long to load. And the good thing is you have physical controls down here, buttons, which I like, buttons and knobs to duplicate some of these efforts here. And then there's a tiny little storage space here. I'm not quite sure what it's for, but you could certainly throw some stuff in there. So here you've got your physical volume, you've got your home buttons, forward and back, and then down here is your HVAC, and you also can control the rear climate. And then this one comes with heated seats, cooled seats as well. Definitely generous cup holders, a place to charge your phone wirelessly, and then this big bin in here, a little tray here to put stuff in as well, and then plenty of room in there for stuff that you need to carry around. Okay, so this is the bit that things I don't like about this car. This has not changed very much. It is new, but Chevy hasn't spent a lot of time, seeing as it's going to be digital, to make it look better. There's a little scroll wheel here on here to say what your average MPG is. Not very good, 10.2, how far we've gone. And then you can take a look at what your fuel range is. It's a 24-gallon tank. Again, if you get the diesel, you can go over 600 miles with that one. Just a few informational screens here, like tire pressures, etc. You can just scroll through these, but I don't like the look of it as much. Some other manufacturers just do that a lot better. This model is an four-wheel drive model, so you get a button that says auto, that it just decides, the system decides, what do I need depending on, situation. Is it raining, snowing, is it rocky or whatever, and it decides what drive you need. You can force it to just do rear-wheel drive, or you have 4 high and 4 low. It only has an 8-inch ground clearance. I'm not quite sure how adventurous you get with 4 low, but it certainly offers that. And then it also gives you the ability to do hill descent control and then control your speed as such. It's got the annoying stop-start, which is something I would normally turn off, and then lane departure control and many of the other safety features that are pretty standard on most cars these days. All right, let's take it for a drive and see what it's like on the road. This does have 4-wheel drive. Typically this is the kind of car you drive in auto mode. This Premier model does have the heated steering wheel, which I have on now. It's a little cool this morning, 43 degrees. Got the heated seats on. I find these seats a little bit flat. I did just drive the Lexus LS 500, so that might be a cause for these not being as comfortable, but they are a little bit flat, and they could use a little bit more sideways support. Not that I'm going to be getting into any drifting in this thing or craziness around corners. And as I said before, there's nothing wrong with this particular base level V8. It's got plenty of power, but it is short of torque. And having driven the diesel, I've been spoiled. Having driven that diesel, it's such a good engine. So I would definitely spec this out. And the good news is GM doesn't charge a ton for the diesel engine, which is good. If you're going to buy a Jeep and you buy the diesel engine, you've got to spend $6,000 on the engine, $4,000 on the actual diesel engine itself, and then $2,000 on the 8-speed transmission. That's a lot of money for, to make up in savings on gas. This one so far has not been very economical. You have to push it to get it to do what you want in terms of performance. Another great reason to get the diesel. So far I'm averaging a pretty horrendous 9.5 miles to the gallon, but that's only because I've been driving around town. I haven't really got on the freeway. It does ride really nicely, quite smooth. The new independent rear suspension, the new multi-link suspension irons out the bumps better. It feels generally a lot less truck-like, which is a good thing. Obviously it still behaves like a truck, but you can actually hustle this along at decent speeds and it feels a lot more composed, whereas you got that sort of shake in the whole vehicle with the old Tahoe. And this one is a little bit lighter than the Suburban that I did drive, so it actually drives actually even better. Brakes are solid, can't complain. It's a heavy car. They need to be good. So you floor it, and it makes some noise, and it goes, and you can get up to speed pretty reasonably quickly. That's the problem. You've really got to mash your foot to make this one go. Now you could opt for the 6.2 liter with 420 horsepower, and that one's good, but you know, you might want to tow a tank full of gas behind you, because that thing's pretty thirsty too. Yeah, the diesel is the way to go with this car. I do like what they've done with the design as well, and this touchscreen is super easy to use. It's fast, it's intuitive, it's easy to find what you need to find. The one in the center is not my favorite. I think they could have done a little bit more work on this one to make it a little bit more modern. It still sort of reminds me of the old one, a little bit of an afterthought, but everything else is pretty well put together. Solid materials. It feels like they've made an effort. Even down below, and there's a couple of scratchier, harder materials down below your knee, but you don't really notice. And then right where your knee rests is a nice cushioned section right there. On the whole, it's a pretty nice place to be, which it should be. This one comes in at $70,000. That's a lot of money. It's a lot of car, but it's also a lot of money. But if you want to haul a lot of stuff, there's a ton of room in the back. I do like these captain's chairs. The only downside is if you have dogs, they have a tendency to be able to walk through the gap in the seat. So if you have dogs, maybe it would be better to get the rear bench. But I do like the captain's chairs, because it makes for easier access for anybody that gets the short straw and gets shoved in the back. It's pretty quiet in here too. Pretty relaxing. Haven't really tried it off-road, although this one does have hill descent control. You can put it into permanent four-wheel drive at the push of a button here. Unfortunately, it has 20-inch wheels on street tires. The clearance on this car is 8 inches, so Subaru Outback will beat that by a little bit. It's decent, it's enough, but don't even think about going crazy and go rock crawling. A Jeep, it is not. Steering's nicely weighted, not over light, but decent enough, and then there's a little bit of feel to the steering, and it tracks pretty good. You turn the wheels move. There's not too much play in the steering. I like it for a big full-size SUV. It drives pretty well. There's a few things that I wouldn't order on this, and you get the Premier, you get the sunroof. I find them a waste of time unless I need to go to Home Depot and pick up a very long piece of wood, and then it's really easy to poke it through the roof. But most of the time, 99.9% of the time, I don't need a sunroof. Now the vehicle above this, the top model is the High Country. They're even more expensive, but you could start with the base model and add whatever you want. There's some good configurations on the Chevy site that you can go in and you can configure this vehicle. Also, I am getting slowly used to this sort of push-pull button system. Obviously gone is the column shifter, which is good. That had been around for a long time. These buttons are easy to use. It's just pull for drive, pull for reverse, and push for park. The turn signal makes quite a nice noise. It has a sort of low, sort of subtle sound. I don't know, I notice these little things sometimes. Now, obviously you only get one stalk now, now that you don't have the shifter on this side, so it's big space, big nothing there. I'm always quite used to having the wipers on the right-hand side, but in this case, you just turn this little thing on the turn signal stalk to get the wipers to work. Not a very common occurrence here in Southern California. The 10-speed transmission, though, I've driven it in so many different GM cars. It's an absolute triumph. It was co-developed with Ford, and it doesn't really work well in Fords. Ford doesn't seem to have the programming right, but GM's programming in this 10-speed is just phenomenal. It never needs to hunt for gears. It seems to know what engine it's mated with. It's programmed correctly with the engine that it has, and this one works perfectly. Changes down when needed, changes up when needed. There's no jerkiness to the transmission. I love it. It's a well done GM. Revs up to about 5,500 RPM. There is no sport mode. You wouldn't need one, or at least I haven't found it. But no, there is no need for a sport mode. So there aren't many things that, you know, if this is the kind of car that you want, a full-size SUV, Ford has an option, this is a good option. I like this one. I like what they've done. I like the way that they've modernized this, you know, for what it needs to be. It's a family hauler. That's what it is. But, you know, it goes around corners pretty good. It doesn't lose its composure. Ultimately, it will understeer, but nobody's going to drive like that, or at least they shouldn't. That was from 0 to 60. I wasn't trying too hard. It definitely gets out of its own way. You're not going to get very good gas mileage if you drive it like that for most of the time. I do like that turn signal. It's quite comforting. Unfortunately, at least here in Southern California, nobody uses them, so they probably won't get to hear it when they buy this car. This is a pretty rough piece of road, but the car does iron these bumps out pretty well. I think Chevy's done a really good job with this car. I think they'll sell like hotcakes. That's the end of my test for this vehicle. I'm definitely going to give this a decently high rating. Thanks for watching again. Please subscribe, like, make some comments, and we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.